Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a very cool watch for you. It's actually the new for 2016 Orient Mako II. Basically what this watch entails is a new hacking and hand windable movement, and there's no more pusher for the date crown. So setting the day of the week is pretty much like setting it on any other watch now. Besides that, there are some other small changes that we'll cover. But let's go ahead and start out with a little bit about the brand. For those of you that don't know, Orient is a company that its origins are from Japan. It's basically, you could think of it as Seiko and Citizen's kind of lesser known cousin. Although, Orient does fall underneath the Seiko Epson brand. So there are some family ties there. So the Mako itself is a dive watch, of course, and some general characteristics you want to look for when looking at a dive watch would be, water resistance through some type of screw down crown and seals and gaskets. You want something that's tough, legible. You want to have a dive timer bezel, maybe a dive extension. Is always nice to have if you have a bracelet. So a little bit about this 2016 quote-unquote Mako II. So these are going for anywhere from between about $160 to around $200 online right now. They're not really widely released yet. And their specs are pretty much very similar to the original Mako, but let's go ahead and take a closer look. So let's take a look at the Orient Mako 2. Okay, so it's about a 41.5 millimeter diameter, 13 millimeter height. This is very nice. Stainless steel, of course. It does have a mineral crystal, so you don't get sapphire like you would with the Mako USA. But, that's not necessarily a huge deal, and really most Seikos in this price range and well above this price range don't come with a sapphire crystal either, so not a huge deal. One of the nice updates is that the bezel, still unidirectional bezel, it is now 120 click. So let's go ahead and give it a whirl. So it's definitely a lot more precise feeling. I'd say it's a little bit snappier than like an SKX bezel, which is also 120 clicks. So very nice. And as you can see, one of the first differences, apart from, this is a 60 click bezel, is that the bezel itself and the finish, as you can see, is matte. So it used to be glossy, as you can see here, and even the dial, I don't know if the camera's gonna be able to pick that up, but even the dial itself actually is a sunburst effect, but it's a glossy dial, and you can kind of tell the difference in the way that the sunbrush pattern comes into play on the textures of the dial. If I can get it in between the studio lights there. So a little bit more general knowledge kind of about the watch. It has a screw down crown, which is still signed, which is nice. So just go ahead and So very nice screw down crown, but as you can see, another comparison is that this crown is actually smaller on the new model. And I think it's probably just to kind of balance out the weight of the watch now that this pusher is gone. I think if you would have kept this same crown that without the pusher, it would actually look very oversized. Here, I think it definitely is toned down nicely. So one of the differences also that you can really feel is the finishing on here. The crown itself is much sharper. The bezel grips also feel a lot sharper, which is nice. So the movement inside is a new hacking and hand windable movement from Orient. It's the caliber F69. The case back is solid. Oh, if I can, and get a closer look. It's pretty much still the same as on the previous Mako. So you can take a look here. Better look. Has the Orient seal on there. Really nothing too fancy, just a nice clean etching. And the dial is a dark blue sun ray dial with applied indices. Just get it to focus there. Cool. There is a day date complication at 3 o'clock. It has kind of sword and spear hands, and the Lume glows green, which is nice. The water resistance remains at 200 meters. And then as far as the bracelet goes, they have brushed solid links with hollow folded end links. And then there's as you can see the end links, if I can get the camera to, there we go. So you can see the end links are folded, but they do fit really nicely. And then we have the signed folding clasp there with the pusher deployment. So that's pretty nice. And you know what? This is actually a really nice bracelet. So, you know, it doesn't have the solid end links like the Mako USA. And while I'm shooting this video, I just wanted to confirm with everybody that the Mako USA end links do not fit this watch. They don't fit the previous watch either. I've read mixed things online, but I actually finally got around to trying it myself, and they definitely do not fit. The main reason being is that for the Mako USA, it has drilled lugs, and due to that, they actually centered the lug holes a little bit more on the case. I think for aesthetic reasons, and probably for, you know, the strength-wise of the case. You know, they didn't want to have the hole all the way on the end. But as you can see here, the spring bar hole is pretty much, I mean, it's right there on the corner if the camera can pick that up. So because of that, the mounting point is different, and if you try to put on the Mako USA bracelet, there is noticeable kind of gap. I'm sure you can kind of do a little bit more work to make it fit flush, but you know, it's definitely not a direct plug in there. I mean, there's going to be some work done. I've seen people weld bracelets onto watches, so it wouldn't surprise me if somebody was able to make it work. But for everyone else out there, just know that it's not really the greatest fit. It definitely, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. So let's go ahead and get this on the wrist. So as you can see, you know, just like the previous Mako, wears really, really well on the wrist. I really think that the matte finishing really adds a little bit of class, and it really, I don't know, it just, the watch, to me, the finish makes it look a little bit more expensive in comparison to the previous, which had the glossy, which was nice, but, you know, I guess it kind of in comparison, I think on its own, you would never think that, but I think in comparison, you know, that the polished finish, or say the glossy finish, really just looks cheaper in comparison. And in case any of you are wondering, this wonderful natural leather strap is from Hirsch. It is the Hirsch Pure. rubber strap, 22 millimeters, because the lugs on this remain at 22. So, you know, kind of like most entry-level Seikos and, you know, of course, Orient models, the bracelet is kind of a throwaway thing, and, you know, the watch case itself ends up pairing really well to nice leathers and rubber straps, and then also, of course, NATOs. So, I think this is a nice blue, and it would, I'll probably end up putting the 2016 Mako on the on that same rubber as well. So let's go ahead and nice close up on the wrist. You can also see the profile here. Wears really flat, hugs the wrists, very comfortable. I mean, you know, I really, putting this watch on made me remember why I got the Mako and, you know, and the Ray and subsequently the entire line after that. And these are the watches that actually caught my eye and pulled me away from the Seiko SKX, you know, 009 and 007. It's just kind of a more sedate, classy look to it versus the more toolish design of the SKX. And then, of course, you know, I think spec for spec, it's tough to beat something like this. I mean, it does have applied indices, and now that it has the hacking, hand-winding movement, and then, you know, 120 click bezel. I mean, the bracelet's definitely better than the SKX bracelet. So, I mean, it's really tough to argue with this. You know, I guess the general thoughts, you know, the improvements are extremely solid, and it just retains that classic look and really just kind of refines the execution. On the wrist, you know, it's really solid just the way it sits, you know, although it's nice that, you know, there are certain things you can do aftermarket. You know, like get a sapphire put on there, or, you know, an aftermarket bracelet, or just any type of strap, you know, and you can swap the bezels. You can put the Ray bezel on here, or the Mako USA bezel. I'll probably end up putting the Ray bezel on here. And I actually should be reviewing the updated Ray model here pretty soon. But for now, I think it's fine. I do think that the Ray bezel suits it a little bit nicer as far as the font on the numbering goes, matching the bezel to the dial. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And then also, you know, Yaboki's has a coin edge bezel option as well. So, you know, there's definitely some options here for this watch. And let's get some, I guess, resting wrist action here. You know, the profile of this watch and the way it feels, I mean, it's really reminiscent of, you know, the old Omega Seamaster Professionals. You know, the old Pierce Brosnan Bond Seamaster, where I just think the proportions are very similar. Of course, you know, it doesn't really look, I mean, the handset, I guess you could say, look pretty similar to even the pre-Bond. So you would have to go a little bit before that model, but the sword hands, you know, I guess they do look a little Seamaster-ish. But I mean, other than that, it's definitely has its own. I mean, you see this, it doesn't look like a Rolex sub-homage. You know, it has many of the same elements, but it's really a watch of its own, and it has its own character and a real cult, you know, following for it. And then, you know, another watch in my collection that I would compare it to, you know, of course, not price or fit and finish wise, but as far as like the profile and the feel on the wrist, you know, I could compare it to my Longines Hydro Conquest. You know, similar color palette. You know, it has the Arabic numbers on the dial. So, I mean, there are quite a few you know, themes that kind of carry over. So for this new make, actually, let me take it off now and start prepping for that Lume shot while we kind of work our way out of here. So we'll keep the old Mako in there just for reference. And I'll just kind of close close on these guys here. Cool. All right, so there are a couple different variants. There's the black Mako, and then of course there's the Ray, the black Ray, the blue Ray. Then there's the Ray Raven, which is all blacked out. So and those are out now with the updated movement. Some of my thoughts on the movement are, it does remind me a little bit, as far as the way it feels. It does remind me of the Seiko 4R36 movements, or the NH36 as well, which is kind of the unbranded version of that movement that you'll find in a lot of other types of watches. The winding action is a little bit grainier, but nothing bad. I'd say it's a little bit more reminiscent of like the Miyota 9015, if you have experience with that. As far as the little bit of kind of metallic feeling and that little graininess from some of the components when you hand wind. But I mean, nothing negative. That's just something that I've noticed. Also, the rotor noise seems to be a lot better. So there's less noise now when the automatic rotor's spinning. So of course, in this price range and this kind of demographic, comparable models would be, like a modded SKX. I mean, honestly, even just a stock SKX is going to cost more than this watch because I got it for $160. And the SKX normally goes for around 180, so you're already getting a little bit more bang for your buck because this has the updated movement, which honestly kind of makes it a nice competitor, let's say, to like the new Turtle reissue, which I also have, and I should be getting a review put together soon. And then of course the comparable model would be the Mako USA, but you don't get the updated movement, unfortunately. But the USA has the solid end links and a lot better Lume and is a little bit quirkier and has definitely more of a toolish vibe. I'd say the bottom line is, the lower price points plus the improvements really make it a solid competitor to the SKX, 007 and 009. The movement upgrade, kind of puts it into, the Turtle reissue conversation. It really is a very competitive watch. It's the Turtle reissue, the SRP Turtles, those are going for, over, double the cost of this. So it's pretty crazy. And really, spec for spec, of course the Turtle is a lot more iconic, but it's also a lot bigger and beefier. So there are certain things, the right collector, I mean, this might be the watch for you. So just something to take into consideration, and then of course, now that the Mako's gaining a bit more aftermarket support, with the sapphire options and the coin edge bezels, and plus now that there's such a wide array of models, it does give you also that interchangeable OEM parts between line variants. So swapping the Ray bezel with the Mako bezel, something that's very easy, it can be done with just a kitchen knife. So you don't really even need a pry tool for that. So I guess we'll close this off with a Lume shot. So what I'll do is I'll just charge these bad boys really quick, and then we'll shut this light off. So as you can see, the Lume is pretty similar between the two. Can't really say one is dominating the other, but one thing I did notice, so you guys can see I think the Lume actually might be different because this Lume under the black light glows very much blue, and then this glows green under the black light. Then of course when I take the light away, they both glow green. But I thought that was kind of an interesting thing to notice there. And I mean, honestly, funny thing is it almost looks like the newer model. Actually, the Lume doesn't seem as strong, and I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it feels like it's a little bit dimmer. And you know, I would think that if they used improved Lume, I would imagine that it would have been brighter. But, you know, I think kind of my explanation might be is that it's, you know, it might just be applied a little bit thinner. So although maybe they use the upgraded Lume, it might just be the application itself, because this is, you know, kind of a more refined piece as far as its design goes. You know, it's less toolish than the Ray. So, you know, I think that's kind of the cool thing that really sets the Mako apart in general, is that, you know, you kind of have a choice. You know, as it's kind of like, you know, if you like the SKX, you know, you're probably going to want the 007 and the 009. I think, you know, it's kind of similar with the Mako and the Ray, right? If you like one, you probably will like the other, and you'll end up with both. So, something to think about, and I thought that was, you know, worth sharing with you guys. So make sure, you know, if you like the video, please hit like. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, and you know, let me know in the comments below what you think of this model. I know I've read some really interesting feedback on the forums. You know, there are tons of people who were like, whoa, that weird wacky date pusher is the day of the week pusher is the only reason I never got the Mako, you know, or Ray. I've never been interested. And then there's other people that are like, that was the whole watch for me, you know, like all of a sudden that the pusher's not there, you know, the no pusher, no love. So there's definitely two different camps to be on. I think, you know, I can see both reasons, but, you know, I do prefer it without the pusher. Although I think the pusher does add, you know, a little visual interest, especially if you're going to be going through different straps and you want it to look a little bit more toolish. I think it definitely does accomplish that. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts below. Thanks again, guys. Bye.